Welcome back to the Joseph Graham Show. Super excited today. I have Tressa. How do you say your last name? I did it. I had the mental block. You're gonna laugh. Right beforehand, I said it three times, and I was like Yonekawa, and
Yes,
I did
perfect.
get it right. Okay, cool. So this is going to be a treat. I met Tressa through my good friend Steve Sims and his group Distillery. I'm going to throw a plug for it. There are very few masterminds I've ever been involved in or paid for. This is one of them. You should check it out if you're looking for an awesome group of disruptors. But today is not about Steve or Henry or any of them. It's about you. So for our listeners, Tressa, tell us a little bit about your background, who you are, and who you help.
Well, my background is my degrees are in neuroscience for cognitive communication. So I started out being a speech pathologist and quickly was able to turn my curiosity about leadership into consulting. So I've done a lot of consulting in compliance and things that are not so exciting, but also in leadership skills. So for almost 30 years now, I've been in relationships and communication for how we live more fully.
I love that. I think it's interesting. You just made it sound all simple. You're like, I have all these degrees, I've done all this stuff, and pretty much I help people with relationships. Is what I heard from that statement. So let's dig a little bit deeper. So you started out in speech pathology, and hopefully I said that right, and moved into what made you go from helping people talk to helping people connect?
I think I grew up formative years, California, Stanford University, where my mom worked, and I was like a normative data kid. So I was brought in, and my first friends were kids of all ability and disability levels. So I never knew that there were any boxes to put people in, which is beautiful. When we moved to Montana, I had nature all around me. And we were so far out in the country that that was my playmate. So one thing that I was always curious about was communication. How do we communicate when we don't have the ability to physically communicate was one thing that I picked up when I was very young. And then as I got older and my mom was usually a department administrator of some kind. And I think honestly, just to save money on childcare, she would have me come volunteer at whatever healthcare system she was working in. And so I was like back in the Candy Striper days, youth volunteer. And they would have me run paperwork up and down to all the departments. So one of the things I noticed was down in this massive healthcare system where there's a piano player and beautiful calligraphy on the wall that talks about how we care for each other, how we heal ourselves and each other. And then I would take a manila envelope up to the top floor, and the vibe and the words were very different.
Hmm.
And as a kid, I couldn't put it together why top floor and care level floors had different language. And so I was always curious about why isn't what's happening in the top levels the same thing that's happening on the mission statement on the wall. So was fascinated by that in a very nerdy, geeky way. And so when I got my degrees, it was all about communication. That was all that was available in the town we were in. So that's how I got there. I've just been completely fascinated my entire life by communication, connection, how things interweave, how we rely on each other and don't rely on each other. And yeah, I'm just a big nerd.
Oh, no, no, I love it. In my mind, it's thinking about four different things right now. One, I love Montana. We'll get there. I've been to Glacier National Park a
Yeah.
couple times and been to Whitefish. It's like heaven. I love that place. But I love the beginning. It's like I grew up with kids that were different. They didn't fit in the normal box. Maybe they had ADHD, or maybe they had dyslexia, or maybe they had a learning disability and what people would consider. But as we've gone along and looked like even on the spectrum and stuff, a lot of people that are higher on the spectrum are very close to genius level in certain things. Their mind looks differently. So that intrigues me because I'm really into that. What is it about? Do you think that was the experience that molded you to be able to connect with so many different people because you were so invested in different ways of communicating?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think because I didn't know there were barriers, I grew up with no barriers,
Hmm.
to communication because we were all in the same room, all on the same mat, all hanging out together, and literally growing up together for the first 7 years of my life. So I didn't know there were barriers. I didn't know there were
Hmm.
boundaries. I didn't know there were rules that we had to follow in how we connect or communicate with each other
Yeah.
because, as kids, even if somebody's not able to talk, you're having conversations. So, carrying that over into adulthood, where we have our boxes, it makes almost no sense to me why we would need to do that. And so my work is really to help us not have to have those barriers that are internalized, right? It's all up here. If we don't have those barriers up here that tell us we can't communicate with someone, then all possibility opens. We have way more choices.
I love that because I'm sitting here thinking because on a different spectrum of society, I grew up in my first pastor at the church, this little country church I went to in Michigan, was from India. He was married to a white woman. I always just thought, and I've had friends like of all different backgrounds, like always. I've never had that thought, oh, I can't talk to them because you look different. But I'm thinking a lot of times it's nature or nurture. Like you grew up in an area where like you had so many different people that were just different. It was no big deal. I grew up people of different races, groups, and all. I'm always curious about that. And I'm thinking, it's so funny where you grew up in your environment will affect that world around you. My mind just sees in like the little patterns, and I'm like sitting here going, because like I can go into almost any group and talk to them. I think that's why I'm good at sales because I just connect with the person and I get curious. And it sounds like that's kind of what you've done with the relationship part with people is you just are curious about them. I think that's an entrepreneurial gene. Not that all entrepreneurs are born, but 90% of them you either know you are or you're not. Because once you get in there and get punched in the face a few times, you're either gonna like it or you get out of the ring. Um, I know I ramble a little bit, sorry. So going back to that, how do we because a lot of the people to give you an idea that listen to this show are sales professionals, first time entrepreneurs, or established entrepreneurs, business owners that are looking for ways to get better. So relationship is everything in business, life, in anything you do, family, personal, whatever. How you treat people, how you make them feel seen can move your business forward or backward. So how do you help people? Because now you're doing more relationship stuff. Did you do that in business before as well? Or give us a little bit of that.
That is a great question. And that's actually exactly how I got into it because I was working with these high level, high profile leaders and their teams. And come to find out that the same tools that I was teaching them to use for leadership, for great leadership, exceptional leadership, were the same tools that they would take home and into the community. And all of a sudden, their marriage started getting better. All of a sudden, their kids wanted to hang out with them again. All of a sudden, things started opening up for them. And they went, "Oh, can you come work with my family? Will you work with me and my spouse?" And it just kind of blossomed from there. The same tools that help us be great leaders are the same tools that help us be great lovers and partners and parents. And it's amazing over 30 years that it's been replicable thousands of times.
So here now my curiosity is thinking, is it because I'm thinking like a CEO board member, because I deal with them all the time. They just tell people what to do normally and has to happen. In a personal relationship with your spouse, guy or girl, you don't typically just tell them what to do to have it happen. So walk us through that a little bit more because everyone has their perceptions of the alpha board, blah, blah, blah. And I know culture and stuff's changing, but how do you help them in the interpersonal communications in business that they can translate over. And I do know that the generations are changing. We don't have as many baby boomers now. It's more Gen X, and it's so some of the cultural stuffs have changed. But walk us through that a little bit.
Well, I think ultimately we're all connected. So when we get to the basics, when I worked in inclusion and I've loved in the past working with boards and companies that are going for an IPO, those kinds of things where culture is crashing because we're trying to get to this goal, right? Or when partners have become rivals because greed or whatever power has entered into what they're trying to do before they go up for sale. So the basic that so that we can get away from those boxes and those labels, which is ultimately the goal. Connection is derived from our own self-worth
Hmm.
primarily. So how do we slow things down and bring things from this heady place of I have to win no matter who I hurt
Hmm.
into a place of self-aware presence and being able to listen. And that will solve for so much
Hmm.
in any space. And so once we understand how to just take a breath, slow things down, come into presence and hear each other, reflectively listen and say, Joe, I just heard you say that you're curious about how this works, how these tools work in real time. right? And you can say, well, actually, no, I was actually curious about this other thing. Because what we hear, like you said, we all come from this nature nurture place. So when I'm listening to you, when I'm seeing something, when I'm experiencing something, it's through all of my filters. The goal, like in yoga, is to get back to that, tabula rasa. Like, how do we become a blank slate? How do we have childlike curiosity, wonder, and awe so that we can have a full experience of this life? Because that's what we're here to do, and life is really short. So when we can bring in this presence, this self-awareness, start to look at our own self-worth. Because a lot of times that's so beaten up. And when we have power, we can use power as a shield,
Mhm.
right? And so we wield it very poorly. And definitely, this approach, this the old guard, the dinosaur approach was, well, I'm in charge, so I say so, right?
Mhm.
Because I'm your parent, that's why. Those things that don't make
Yeah.
sense to our brains. And finally, I think, more and more people are being called out for that kind of archaic structure of why,
Mhm.
and one thing that I have noticed repeatedly with a lot of the leaders that I've worked with is that they will say something along the lines of either A, I have everything that the world told me that I needed to have to be happy. Tell me why I'm miserable. And
Yep.
B, right? And B, I can't sleep at night. I'm terrified I'm going to wake up and people are going to realize that I actually don't have the next great idea. Or
Mhm.
what if I wake up and I don't have the next great? What if I don't have the answer? So we have this preconceived mission in our heads that we have to be infallible, right? We have to be superhuman in a way that is not always possible. So when we can have that self-aware presence, then we can get appropriately vulnerable, um, and say, I don't understand this. I need help with this.
Mhm. I love that. There's so many things going through my head here because, again, I deal with these people all the time. And not these people. I'm one of those people. I've hit the mountaintop and I'm like, what's next? I won multiple awards for a Fortune 100 company. I'm like, okay, whatever. What's next? There's not, there are people, I think, and I want your thoughts on this. People tell you, this is the goal. You get this, you're going to be happy. But really, what I'm hearing you say is look internally, find out what your place of center is, and find out what it is that makes you happy. Is that kind of where you help people get?
Yeah, and it is happiness, but it is also truth.
Hmm.
What's your truth? And it's incredible how many people, high profile people, have said something along the lines of, I've never really thought about what I really needed.
Hmm.
I
Yep.
did what my parents told me to do. I did what the world told me to do. I did what, yes,
Yeah.
my family pictures look great. We look like the happiest family, but guess what? That's not actually what's happening behind the scenes, but appearances are everything in our world. So we have cultivated this culture of not being honest.
Hmm.
So for me, when I finally sat down and wasn't working constantly, and I said, what makes me happy? What do I enjoy doing? I didn't know. I was 30 something and I had no idea what my hobbies were, what I like to do for fun. I had absolutely, and it was terrifying. I was like panicky because, oh my God, how can I be this age and not know what's fun?
Well, you know what's funny? Because you're saying this, and I'm sitting here thinking, going through my sales career, going through the stuff, and I'll give you my reasoning behind it. But it even now, there's times where I'm like, should I be reading a book that's just a fancy book because I like it? Can I give myself time to go do stuff? Because I've always been I take care of them. I get my self-worth from what I achieve, not from who I am. And I've had to go through, and I've gone through a lot of work. Like I've gone through a lot of work and I can follow it back. But most high achievers I know, and I think they're going to fall into this category for you. One, they either have ADHD or dyslexia. They have something like that. They've had a traumatic event in their life. They either have a super high IQ or EQ. I have a high EQ. I have a decent IQ. I don't think I have a super high. I don't know, care. Um, and then they have this burning desire to make sure that everyone else sees them as successful instead of being successful. And there's two different things there because when you get to the top of that mountain and there's always someone higher up, And then you see the little reels and like you mentioned, the highlight reels and all, there's always, oh, they just did this. Oh, they just did that. Joe just went to Hawaii. Tress was just in London. Steve was just whatever. And people are seeing like the results, but they're not seeing the hours of work or all the different things that you put into it to get there.
Yeah.
So how do you help people? I rambled there a little bit, I know, but how do you help people like me, because I fall into this category, actually learn to know what they really like or love? Because for so long, the validation and the stuff that they were told was because maybe in childhood they had a narcissistic parent or they had something else that hit them that they are always trying to prove. And then it's just you can only go on so many trips. You can only spend so much money. And I'm not against money, so do not hear what I'm not saying. I like nice things. So you can go out and make money. I'm not that guy. But help walk us through that a little bit. Is that something that you help people with? And hopefully I didn't ramble too much because I know I went
That was
with my
not a
head
ramble at
brain.
all. That was linear in my brain, and makes total sense. And before I answer that, how do we help? Um, when COVID hit and the international flight shut down, I was on my way to London to do some consulting at Oracle. So when that wasn't going to happen for a while, I was like, how can I help? What can I do? Because I'm not going to sit around at home. And I went back into speech pathology because I had some experience with trach and vent, like the ventilators and things like that. So I thought, well, maybe I can help. I
Mhm.
got placed just randomly because I was like, I'll just go wherever. I'll just throw it up into the universe and see what comes back. I got placed in Oakland at a nursing home that serves mainly people who are unhoused. So we're in lockdown in this like sticky floor place, right? Serving the needs of people who have lived kind of hard. And the thing that I kept asking was, who are you? Like, I want to know who you are to my patients and to the residents there. And so many times the stories came back incredible, that people had like achieved pinnacle. There was an
Mhm.
astrophysicist, right? Who then marriage ended, kids were not with them anymore, house was lost, job was lost, addiction, all of those things. What it came back around to every single time, mostly men in this building, was at some point in childhood, somebody important to them said, you don't matter. You're never going to amount to anything. How stupid are you? Right? And so these things rattle around in here because they came from important people. And one of the things that I always ask is we need to have the self-awareness to not break other human beings.
Mhm.
And we don't necessarily need to be cheerleading, right? If it's not honest. But let's not break other human beings or harm ourselves.
Mhm.
So coming back now to your question, how? The first thing we have to do is slow everything down. And it can be as simple as taking a longer, deeper breath than you have before. Because one of the things that we know is that when we breathe, what a simple thing, but breath is life.
Mhm.
Life is short. Life is here to be fulfilling and experienced. We're supposed to be here learning and having the experience of our lives because at some point it will end. So when we breathe and just notice our breath, it can start to slow down what's happening, all that chaos in our brain. When we have come through a world of family spaces of chaos, we tend to want to recreate that wherever we are in different ways that are not even conscious for us.
Mhm.
It's not like I'm going to come in here and create chaos. No, that's not what happens. What happens is we blow people off, we miss calls, we're late to something, whatever. So we create that for ourselves. And when we can slow things down and get real, it could be painful, but it
Mhm.
can also be really beautiful because then we can cut through all the garbage, all the constriction, all the stuff that we've been holding that we think keeps us safe, but is just a pattern.
Yeah.
And we can choose new patterns.
Mhm.
So, how do we do it? That's how we do it.
I love that because I'm sitting here going through my sales career, my life career, all the different things I've done, and I found, and again, I went and got help. So, man, I'm saying this directly to you because women are normally better at this, but ladies, if you have an issue, take it as well. ask for help. It's
Yeah.
okay. It's not a weakness. It's actually a strength.
But
Going
ask
through
the right
certain,
person, right? Sorry to
yeah,
interrupt.
the right
Ask
person.
the
Yes.
right,
No,
yeah,
please
the
do.
right person, right people, the right place for help. Because if you ask someone who's commiserating,
Hmm.
that's just reinforcement,
Yeah.
right? If you really want to change it, you have to ask somebody who can help you change it. And that's one of the things I love about Steve Sims,
Hmm.
is that I mean, I threw my credit card at him 18 minutes into knowing him because he was obviously different. He was obviously
Yep.
doing different. And he was like, take what you know, take what you do really well, take what can help people and get it out there or F off, And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is my coach. Because that's how my system works. And he'll also stand out on a boat, right, in Italy somewhere and say, yeah, this looks great, right? This looks amazing. But you don't see that X number of times that I've gotten a no. And the real of this is that we don't always win. And when we try to put out there, when we think that we have to front that we're always winning, how much ridiculous stress is that?
It's annoying. And
It's
in reality, I don't even. Here's the thing. If I always win, and I did have a little joke in my old sales job, all I do is win because I had that dialed in a different one I was doing. I was like, they just joked to me on it. But I'm like, if there's no chase, it's not interesting. If there's no struggle, there's no reward. If I can just close my eyes and do this, it's conquered. I'm bored. I want to move on to the next thing.
right, exactly. If there's no refusal, no redirection, then where are we learning?
Hmm.
And so my question for you is, how did you rise to be consistently winning in sales? Like you've done amazing things in sales that people want the secret to, air quotes the secret. How did that happen? What made that?
Here's the funny thing, it's nothing super exotic. I am boringly consistent. Success is boring. It's doing the right things over and over again with the known results. I learned the systems, I learned the patterns. You mentioned something earlier. When I'm on a sales call, like on this, I talk a lot because it's a podcast. We're talking back and forth. If we're on a sales call, I don't talk much. I ask questions, I ask open-ended questions. I listen intently. I reply back to the customer what they said. Is this what you meant? This is what I heard, and I could have heard it wrong. Is this what you need? I repeat it back to them, get everything there, close all their objections, and then say, hey, here's the value. You agree with it, blah, blah, blah. This is the price. What questions do you have? And then they might blow smoke and we start the actual negotiation. But I also failed forward. I made over 10,000. I probably made over, it's way over 10, probably over 100,000 calls in the last 20 years. Easy. Just phone cold calling because one job I had, I was making 200 calls a day. Like that was just the job. Um, I get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I don't care. Like I know if I'm uncomfortable, I'm in the right spot. If I'm too comfortable, something isn't there. But going back to what I said before, going through, and I did go to someone that knew what they were doing to help me, but well, actually a couple of different people, but I started doing things that would help refresh me because I'm not an extrovert. I know everyone thinks I am. I can play the role really well. I'm more of an introvert. I walk 6 miles a day on average just because I need alone time, and we're by mountains so I can see mountains.
Mhm.
I will go sit in silence. I will literally go sit on my patio and just have it be quiet. And when I walk, I'm not listening to a podcast, and I love podcasts. I'm doing a podcast right now. I'm like just getting in my head and letting my mind talk. You mentioned something else though, and I know I bounce around a lot, but you mentioned learning your beliefs and challenging them. And this is where my thought is. If I never challenge my belief, it's not my belief, it's what someone gave me, not something I received. So I've been really the past 5 years challenging my beliefs from my belief in Christianity or religion in general to my belief in everything about life, which is hard because you're going to ruffle people's feathers because if you look at things and say something a little bit different, than what they're used to with you, they trip out. But on the flip side, 10 years ago, I was being fake. I was being the chameleon. I was being the one that I could get you to do whatever I wanted. Wolf
Right.
of Wall Street, yeah, I can do all the mental manipulation tricks, all that stuff. And I was like, I don't like this. I don't feel good about it. I can't do it. It's not authentic to me. So I just switched to if this works for me and you trust that, great, we're gonna have a deal. If not, I'm gonna refer you to someone else. And guess what? Oh my gosh. People are like, I like this. I'm not feeling like I'm getting taken advantage of.
Right, right, exactly. And everything you said, that's the foundation of relationship, right? So I listen, I reflectively listen and feed them back what they've told me to make sure I have it correctly, to make sure we're on the same page and we're connected, right? And that we're talking about the same thing so that the buy-in, the trust can be there. So that safety is the thing that so many times is missing in a relationship because we get into our little beige patterns, and we walk by and we say, okay, great, have a great day, honey, love you, bye. And it means absolutely nothing. It's a script,
Hmm.
right? So when we do the same things all the time in intimate relationships, it becomes just like a dial tone, like,
Hmm.
and it's comfortable. It's comforting. And we like the consistency of having someone either come home to us, or we come home to, or like we meet in the hallway, or whatever it is. And also it can start to get boring.
Hmm.
So the way that we like people think I need to spice things up, let's have a baby, let's go to, the Maldives, let's, whatever that is. But we can do that by simply having eye contact and holding each other's presence sacred, for 3 breaths and connecting and saying, I love you right now because. Right now, when we take that into corporate, and I love working corporate too. It was amazing. It's the same concept, different language.
Right.
Right? So when we're working with teams, when we're working with clients, any of those things, we want their attention. And we
Hmm.
want them to know they have our attention. It's hard in this world, and now we're doing it through AI. And now that AI is being programmed to talk like people we expect to be spoken to from, we are buying into it and they're becoming our friends. In Japan, they've had like fairies in jars, that are basically a partner that will actually pick up the phone, answer the phone. It's AI answering the phone saying, oh, hi, honey, I'm so glad to hear from you. When will you be home? Right? I'm looking forward to you coming home. And then you get home and you open the door and the fairy in the jar says, it's so good to see you. What's for dinner tonight? And it takes
Hmm.
away that loneliness and it gives us that reciprocity. It's crazy, isn't it? But when you think about how we impact each other, what do we want most of all? What do we crave most of all? It's being seen.
Hmm.
Everyone being seen and being connected with, being in connection. And so, however we get that in this world in a healthy way, I'm all about it. But I personally want to help people connect with each other because we're so afraid of each other. I mean, the whole road rage thing, and I've tested this on numerous boyfriends, I'll say. Um, it comes from a place of self-worth, right? So,
Uh-huh.
oh, that person cut me off. And it happens with women too, of course. That person cut me off. They did something to harm me or disrespect me, right? Therefore, now I'm angry. Now, it's much easier to do behind the wheel of a big car than it is if you're out on a sidewalk.
Yeah.
You're not going to do the same thing if someone cuts in front of you to get to the crosswalk. You're not going to be like, blowing up and calling them names because
Yeah.
you're right there, right?
Hmm.
But you have even this little bit of anonymity, and then we think we have the space to exercise our lack of self-worth.
Hmm.
It just
And
comes
we
out.
do it on the internet too, because you
Oh,
get all
totally.
the internet keyboard warriors. My mom was just thinking of that. It's so interesting, but I want to go back because you mentioned the AI and the fairy thing. I'm into fancy stuff, and I think that's cool, but I almost made me sad
Right.
because AI cannot really give you the genuine warmth of being seen by a human. And I'm really big into humans. And again, I'm not against AI. I use AI. It's fine. It's a great tool. But I'm sitting there going, I would be that made me just feel if the only thing I could come home to was a AI animated thing that said, "Hey," it made me feel like I was Wally for a moment, and there's no one else in the world because I have to. I know that works for some people. Don't take that. I'm not trying to be mean. That just I was like that. Like, oh, I'm gonna get an animal instead because at least I know that they kind of love me. I can look at a puppy.
Right. And, when this first started coming out, and this has been over a decade ago now, I thought, oh God, that the same thing is so sad. And now I think, there are people on this planet who might not have access to
Anyone else? Yeah.
relationship. Yeah. And who work themselves all the time and who like it's not like you can't fraternize at work or there's still places with those rules. So would I rather have someone have some kind
Oh
of
yeah.
relationship, right?
Yep.
Rather than just be completely lonely and angry and,
Yeah.
frustrated and,
Oh,
you know,
we could go differently here, and this is not just a business podcast. Like that's why I changed the name, so we can go deeply different ways. But like even there's certain people that have a hard time even getting a date. So if they have an AI to make themselves feel like they can get a date to get the confidence to talk to a person, I
sure,
don't care. I
yeah,
was just that was just more of my heart reaching out, not
yeah.
don't. I guess as I get older, the more less judgmental am. Like except for of the government. I don't like the government in general. That's just a general statement. I don't like either party, so you can be mad at me for whichever one you think I like. I don't care. But like besides that, like let people live and enjoy their life. And I think the hardest thing is as we as a society have evolved and get new technologies and all this stuff, the tribe mentality, the village mentality of having people that you interact with each and every day, like people did for thousands of years, is gone. Because
Yeah,
like I know my neighbors here because I went and talked to them. In my house before, I knew my neighbors because we would go and talk to them. But a lot of people, they don't even know who their neighbors are. They don't even know who they are. I want to know who's around me too. I'm a little bit of that guy. I'm like, okay, who are you? Why are you here? Oh, you have a cute dog. Okay, we're friends. But it's like, I think, well, let me ask you this. And I feel like I'm talking a lot more on this one. So I apologize. I'm trying to let you talk more. And I'm just
great.
like,
This
bah.
is great. I love this.
Would it be better, almost in my mind, sometimes if we could go back, not have a false civilization, don't hear what I'm not saying, but like go back to having more inter-community dialect, but not in the my community is the only best community, like intercultural grouping. So I don't want it to be like some little hut in Africa where it's all the same, or some little farm country where it's all this. I want the diversity of it, but that community, I think, is the biggest thing that's lost. And that's why like I grew up in the 90s and we joked about this all the time. The stuff people say on the internet, if you said in the 90s, you get punched in the face. If you're a guy or a girl, wouldn't matter. You wouldn't say that. And people say it now. And we need a little bit more dose of what would happen if they were there? This is a human.
Yeah. And I think it's hard to think about going back to a time when dot dot dot. For me, it's more in this present time, how can we make it better together?
Hmm.
And when I mean, not every place has lost that communal tribal thing. I think, even I'm pretty nomadic now.
Hmm.
But when I see the same people at the coffee shop or, whatever, over and over, you start to feel like you know each other.
Hmm.
Same thing with being online. A lot of people have said that this is going to be harmful for people, but I see people in the world and we recognize each other because we've seen each other online.
Oh
You
yeah,
and I know each other, from being on,
online. Hmm.
and we could definitely sit down and have lunch and have a great time, in person too, but we don't have that opportunity right now. So it's an interesting time right now to look at how connection and relationship can happen and evolve from a healthy and very real, authentic, intentional place instead of just fronting because, when the camera goes off on somebody else,
Yeah,
right?
I hate that.
Right?
Oh, I
So,
hate that. Oh, sorry.
yeah.
That gets me just I am you're gonna get me on camera and off camera. I don't like the fake people. Fake people repel me or I repel them, whatever. Sorry.
Well, and I no, I think that's brilliant. And I think that's a beautiful statement because you're asking for the real, requiring the real because you show up that way. Not everybody has had that model. I mean,
Yeah.
my kids are 21, 24, and 26 right now. I met them when they were 7, 9, and 11, and through adoption and the foster care
Hmm.
system, and amazing, amazing daughters. And what I saw them grow up with, even having resources and, kind of a very grounded, I think, parenting style from me. But the forces that they grew up with that challenged them to be always beautiful, always, like all these things that are not realistic. And then to watch them try to live that and to have those conversations about, what's going on for you? Like what's coming up for you when this happens? When somebody has like hard drugs at a party and you feel compelled to try them because other people are doing it, is that
Mhm.
really what you want to be doing? Like, can you get ahead of it? And it's really hard. It's really hard even as an adult to get ahead of not going with what's happening that everybody else says is successful. And, it's to me kind of the 10x mentality and nothing against that. Go get your dreams, 1,000x it. But when we start being like, yeah, this is how we live, this is what we do, the challenge to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning, your workout done by 4:30 and then like, hitting it.
I've
That was
done it. I've done it. Yep.
right, me too. That was totally appealing and a lot of fun for me at one point. And I ended up having a lot of success really accidentally because I didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of following. But also there's this place of, but is this really true? And my friends who have gone from big corporate culture, big high profile positions to like, I just want to work in startups or I just want to work for myself or, those things like, but that was the dream, right? At one time, that was what you needed to be in order to be successful was to have those titles and to work for these companies. And I think now, thank goodness that we have some pushback. Millennials, thank you for avocado toast and
Voila.
standing and standing up for the truth of being, the truth
Mhm.
of living.
What's interesting? Because this is how my mind worked. And I know a lot of those people, and I was that guy. Like, I was the guy that did 75 hard twice, probably did 6 times. I was the guy that would grind from dusk till dawn. And I was like, why am I doing this? Why? Like, I had to get to the point where, like you said, you get to the mountaintop. I did all this work, but it's not fulfill. Oh, great. So the company took me to Palm Beach. It was nice. They stayed at a five-star hotel. It was nice, but they got to tell me what to do. I'd rather go to Hawaii and do my own thing and just make enough money to do it. And I think it's just finding out what it is that really works for you. There's no set rules. Now, some of these people that keep trying to sell you this crap online, they're selling it to you because if you don't buy, they don't have money. Like I have a rule, and this is you're gonna laugh at this one. If you have not achieved it, I will not hire you. And if you can't show me where you've done it, you're not going to coach me. That's why I worked with Stevie first, like with Brian, because I know these guys have done it. But I will never try to teach you on something I haven't done. And this is the other thing sales trainers, and I'm just throwing this out here. If they did it 20, 30 years ago, the map has changed. So the big one that used to sell cars 20 years ago and the one that went to jail 30 years ago in the 80s, their systems are outdated. You need
Mhm.
relationship first to help people, not take them down a track to screw them. I know I went on a thing, but when you said that, I used to be hustle culture, and I'm probably now more anti-hustle culture because I'm more results culture and building a life you want to wake up to, not I'm gonna work and do 80 to 100 hours a week for my family and never see them. No, you're not. You're full of shit. You're doing it for yourself. Own it.
Yeah, and for me, I know, and for a lot of the people that I've worked with, um, in kind of bigger jobs, um, a lot of us are hiding.
Mhm.
Right? A lot of us
Ooh,
are.
go deeper on that. What do you mean by
Yeah.
hiding? Because people will have different thoughts. So
Yeah.
how are we hiding?
We're giving the perception of, and we can love what we do. I loved what I did. I was actually one of those people who was proud of sleeping 4 hours a night, right? And I still love what I do, right? I love what I do. And I love this work in helping people live in their truth and in their vibrance and in their happiness. But happiness, and like that Harvard study, that multi-decade Harvard study, that we keep getting results back from, the major indicator for the quality of happiness is the quality of our relationships. So
Mm,
when we are part of something that is just go, 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 and we don't really have time to sink in and go deep with anybody because it's just constant movement, there's a place there of resistance, of being seen
mhm.
in a way that is deeper and more meaningful. And one of the reasons that I love working with couples, especially couples who have done this, who've been in the hustle, who have created empires, they have forgotten or lost or never knew. Like I never learned the tools in school or anywhere else until I stumbled on them through leadership. But those tools of relationship are basically 10,000 plus year old technology, yogic technology that we're bringing into the now to really cultivate a great life. I think more now because of everything that's happening in the world and generations now coming in and saying, yeah, I'm not going to struggle for you and get nothing out of it and die,
Mhm.
right? I'm not going to just like have ends meet and be able to survive and then die because I made your company better. And I
Yeah.
love that because that's what we were trying to do, Joe,
Hmm.
right? Like make the world better, make it better, be successful, go, 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 go.
Yep.
But we never thought about why, right? What's in it for me?
Hmm.
How is my life and the life of the people or the person I love changed
Hmm.
for better or for worse by how I'm doing this, by why I'm doing this? And I think that's one of the reasons Simon Sinek, blew up
I
on
love
his
him.
TED Talk, right? Is that he asked the question in a way that people could hear. He was very accessible,
Hmm.
um, of why.
I think
And
that's our generation. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
yeah,
Please
no, go
go.
ahead.
Go.
Go ahead. No,
No,
go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, I think that's our generation because I'm assuming you're Gen X. I'm assuming maybe you're a little bit younger, but you're probably in that thing. And our parents just left us alone. We were never allowed, we were never worried about stuff like be home by dark. They had to do an actual video saying, is your kid home at 10 o'clock to our parents? Because our parents were self-absorbed. They really were. Most of them were. Not a bad thing. It's just the baby boomers. That's what they were. And then we had kids and they looked at what we did and they're like, we looked at what our parents did and didn't like it. We tried to change the world and do the Gen X thing. Then the next ones come along and they're like, I'm not just gonna go waste the time. It's funny just to see that progression that you mentioned there. But it hit me. I even said, "Ooh," you were talking about. Oh crap! Now my mind went blank. I'm gonna let you talk again because like I was there and I went ooh, and then I went on the little sidetrack
Well,
and
when it comes back in, just hop in. And because what that brings up for me listening to you is my daughter several years ago, we were just talking about family and life and things, and they said, "You've been a really great mom. We just didn't get enough of you."
Mhm.
Right. And
Mm,
so this place of, but I need to provide, but security is money, but safety is work, but all those things took me away from the very people that I had the opportunity to have the most impact and love with and for.
mhm.
And
Mm.
that sucks.
You know what it is? It's this. It's the dichotomy of and I am an old soul. I make this comment all the time. I know I am. Boys and men used to either train with their dad or with an apprentice for years to do the jobs. Women would do stuff the same type of way, that communion you're talking about. But in this corporate setting world now, we're not with people that care about us. They care about what we do. And I think that is why there's such that disconnect sometimes in a corporate setting, even when we were achieving it, because we know they're saying good job. But if I die tomorrow, they're going to cry for about 2.3 seconds and find the next person to put in. Where if I died, my family is going to be very hurt because I'm very impactful. That's where my mind was going with it when you said that, because I'm like,
Mhm.
it all comes back to the actual relationships of the people that we love and are want to be connected with. The problem is that we think going and sacrificing here to give them financial or blah 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 here is more important than actually spending time and doing things with them. Like I slowed down my sales job to be my son's baseball coach, not the actual head coach because I'm not good at baseball. I was just a dugout dude, but I went into work a little bit earlier and I just told my boss, I'm leaving. Now I was a great salesperson, so I could get away with this. I'm leaving earlier on these days so I can do this. And it's probably the thing that I remember the most. And my son's 19 now and I'm going to be an electrician. He was 11 or 12. But I remember that more so. But then I go back to the old wounds because like I couldn't do certain sports when I was younger because of we went to church, we did this, we did that, life happened. My parents are good people, don't take that wrong. I'm not like some I'm just saying like you still ever no one comes out, we all screw our kids up. Like we just do. It's just a part of it. And I'm sitting there going, was that for him or for me? And then I think in both ways it was for both of us to get that connection because we have a great connection now. But yeah, sorry, we get talking about relationship, my mind goes there, and I just want to go deep
I
fast.
love that. I mean, that's what relationship is. And that's what's so exciting to me about relationship is that we can go deep. And that's part of our growth as human beings. That's part of what makes it interesting and compelling. And when we've been with somebody, especially in a partnership, marriage, family for several years, and we just tread water, and we don't really know how we grow. It's like my daughters, if one of my kids liked raspberry popsicles at 7, when they were 11, if I bought raspberry popsicles, they would be like, I don't want those
Ew.
anymore, right?
Yep, 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 yep.
But we have such attachment to the patterns, like, oh, this makes that person happy. Okay, great. I'll do that. And then it becomes perfunctory. It doesn't become loving and considered anymore. Now it's perfunctory because it's just what we do to get along.
Hmm.
And that creates this like vacuum.
Well, I have
So
another question for you because you said this in this longest line.
yeah.
So I've been married 23 years, and my wife and I both have probably changed 6 to 7 times from when we first got married. So how do you keep the connection, the spark, and the right communication? Because again, when we started out, we had totally different ideas, and 23 years later, we've done a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But how do you help? Because I know you help a couple of those. How do you help them keep it? Because you can get into that whole, well, I did this, so you like this, so you should do that, and that's not how you should operate. But you live with someone for so long, you life happens.
Yeah, those patterns. So one of the things is get real, be in the truth of you about who you are right now and what you enjoy, what you like. I always encourage people to learn new things together or separate. But as you're learning new things, then you're growing. Like if you like, you don't need to go skydiving together, but if crossing a creek together, that's scary, like whatever it is. But those challenges of noticing that you can do things together, right? And survive, and it's exciting and fun and playful. It's something different. You have to have date nights. You have to have date days. You have to have date weeks, whatever that is. Um, and also asking, right? It can be something as gentle as like if you have your hand on somebody else's hand and you say, how can I touch your hand right now that would feel good for you? Or how do you want to be touched or spoken to, or what do you need right now? Because the assumption is it's what we've always done. But the reality is today's a brand new day and I'm a different person.
Mhm.
I'm a little bit changed today by my experiences leading up to this moment to be present with you right now. So what's coming up for me right now? Right? I think I want to go for a walk. I think I want to go for a walk at night where it's kind of more, interesting and quieter and for my introverted brain. Those kinds of things. And if we're just sitting on the couch watching a movie again tonight, it never comes up. And another day has gone by. And what's exciting for me about relationship is that when we've been together for a long time, that is the perfect opportunity to go way deep, way, way deeper. And how exciting is that? Also recognizing that the routine is cool. The pattern is safe. It's comfortable, but you have to be present with interjecting more.
Hmm. No, I love that. It's funny because when you say safe, I don't like the word safe. That just came out. I don't know why. I'm a little bit weird. I do have a high risk tolerance. I know that. But like I understand it. Like I believe me, I'm super committed to my wife. Love that whole coming home knowing that we're together. Like, but it's always the little different moments. Like when we went to Hawaii last year and did the half marathon together. We had neither one of us ever done one. That was a cool moment. But also this year we went and painted. Like you can see my crap, I don't care about videos. So we went and painted. So I painted a little gnome. She painted a I think it was a chicken or something. But we had 2 hours of something we hadn't done together.
Right.
Like never had did 22 years. So it was just like a cool, interesting, different pattern break. We were still talking, we were still interacting, but I think we try to make it so epic. Like we did the thing to Hawaii, so you got to go do those big ones.
Right.
Hawaii cost me way more than the $100 or whatever it is to go and paint something, but both still had valuable time. I
Exactly.
think well, walk me through this. And is this with super high achievers more so we think we have to do certain crazy epic things to make it be valuable? Or is it just like, because I find myself being like, well, we need to go here, we need to do this, we need to blah, 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 instead of we could go paint the gnome and have 2 hours of just quality time.
Right. Or even with super high achievers, what I find actually more is that there's this like resistance, resistance, resistance. And then all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I can actually just sink in with you, And then there's this like, huh, this is really nice. So it can even be set a timer for 8 minutes. One thing that I have couples do often is write down 8 different things that you want to do with your person, whatever that is, like lawn darts, whatever it is. Set a timer for, choose a time up to 15 minutes, make it short from 1 to 15 minutes and do that thing, and you're drawing slips out of, each other's
Uh-huh.
hat, 3 or 4 times a week, and just devoting that time to doing this thing with that person. And you agree, like it's by consent, right? So, not that one tonight. Okay, let's pick another one. Okay, here, we're gonna like make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and, toast marshmallows, whatever it is. But that kind of like, oh, we're doing something that I want to do.
Hmm.
One. Number two is, oh, we're spending time just intentionally devoted to each other doing this. Right. So we don't necessarily have to have a helicopter land on the roof, and go to France for dinner. We can spend the time right here. And a lot of times that's even more impactful.
Hmm. I love that. Now, flying to France, I don't know if I want to fly from a helicopter from Arizona to France. I might not make it,
A
but
long helicopter flight.
flying there's kind of would be cool. Like
Depending
I
on
like
your
travel, but no, I love that aspect of it because I think high achievers are always looking for the awards, the medals, the stuff. It has to be hard to have it
yeah.
be impactful. But what I've learned is it doesn't have to be hard. It has to be authentic.
Yeah.
And that has been a hard lesson for me to learn in the beginning because, again, I've always gotten my worth from what I've done.
Right.
And learning that I can be loved for who I am instead of what I do, I think is something that I know I still deal with, but I've gotten better at it with the circles and people around me. And if they're online, all my close friends are online. More so than we phrase that. Bogart lives 30 minutes from me, but I just moved here. Before that, all my close friends were online.
Yeah, yeah. I think, before we got on the podcast, we were talking about friendships, and most of my friends right now are marketers. And I get invited to the marketing masterminds. I know nothing about like the incredible beast we were talking about that is marketing and sales. But I know relationship. And there are so many crossover points with relationship, communication, connection. And marketing, sales when it's done really well. So I
Mhm.
think there's this ecosystem of we need relationship. We want better relationships. We can have them. We were never taught the tools, but once we know the tools and being present and the self-awareness and the self-worth and all of those things, we can bring all of that healthy now self into the spaces between us. And that's what makes a better world. That's what creates better relationship. That's how we change the programming that's been established for way too long, that takes us away from each other, that makes us afraid of each other, that puts everybody in boxes and labels. And that to me is so exciting.
Mhm. Well, and the only caveat is people have to come with their walls down, which is scary and hard at times.
Not necessarily. Like, come with your walls up. In fact, I think that's the most fun. Like, let's
Ooh.
figure out. Oh yeah, like this is not a fluffy game. I mean, I think Brene Brown was one of the people who made soft skills a term, but soft
Mhm.
skills are hard. Soft skills are the hardest and most vulnerable parts of how we interact with each other. So come with all the walls up, come with all the barbs out, come with all the shields, because as we break those down, it's proof that those aren't you. Those are what you.
I'm the weird guy though. I will if I know someone doesn't like me or if I feel like tension, I talk to them on purpose. I don't know why. That's just my personality. I'm like, oh, and
Joe.
then I make them like me.
So,
It's
but
a
okay,
challenge.
you're right. But what is the root of that challenge of making someone like you? It goes really deep. What is
Yeah.
the so if you just take a breath, notice what that's rooted in. Where does it come from?
Self-worth. It's self-worth. I want to be seen. I want to be heard. I want to be liked.
Right.
Like, but I want to be like genuinely, but I also like challenges. So if I feel a push, if it goes back to fight or flight, if I feel a push, I fight. I do not normally fly. Well, rephrase that. Like there are a few situations where I'm sure I would do, but normally the first instinct of me is to fix it or try to fix it. But also goes back to some programming because I dealt with narcissists, so I had to be very much around how they moved, what they did, what they would say. So I would have to know exactly how to get it to get through that process. And yeah.
Yeah. And are you one of the people who came through chaos who's able to be eye of the storm?
Yeah, I like even have a shirt that says chaos on it. Like I like chaos. Like I can do well in it and then I just can kind of I had a friend of mine in human design say that she says I take chaos and put order to it. That's
Yeah.
like a gift I have. And I can see that in some regards, but I also can make a lot of mischief if I feel like it. So I have to guard the negative side because we all have the two wolves. We all have the good and the bad. And I can definitely mess with people if I want to because I remember high EQ and then I'm pretty witty and so I have both tendencies. Like I don't know. I almost am the opposite. I almost wear all myself out now where people just can like 100% hide nothing. Where before I used to wear all the mask and now I just like I'm too tired to wear mask. I'm just gonna do my thing.
Right. And I think that's beautiful. And may people get there way earlier than I did. You
Oh,
know,
I'm 47. It took me a long time to get here. This is not like we have years of trauma and issues and stuff that I had to deal with that I chip on the shoulders. You aren't going to beat me. I'm going to blah. Yeah, no, I've been there. Like I want to make sure I clarify. I had just now getting to this point. It's taken a long time.
yeah, right. But you got there and it's been intentional and you've done the work. And I think, a lot of times we don't know what to do in order to get there. We don't even know there's a there. Right?
Yeah.
So when we have the idea, the picture, the role model of relationship that's done really well, when people are truly happy, and we're not happy all the time, we're still going to have stuff come up. But now using the tools that I teach, I don't have conflict in my relationship anymore that isn't manageable without harm.
Hmm.
So there's no self-harm, there's no harm to the other person. There are no words said that are harmful. I'm not throwing barbs at people or cutting people down in order to try and win, because the only win is to come to a resolution and never have that argument, disagreement again. Right. So the tools that we use for great relationships, great leadership, create the possibility and the probability that conflict is so easily managed that we go, hey, this is uncomfortable, and let's lean into it together. How can we do this better together? And then we figure it out. Like we listen, we do that reflective listening. Like what's coming up for you? A lot of times, conflict, when it rises and we get triggered and we do something harmful, I have thrown a fan down the hallway at my partner before in conflict, right? Before really using all of these tools, I was teaching them. And when you said earlier that like teach what you know, I also believe that we teach what we need to learn. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I know these tools. I'm also teaching what I need to learn, and it's exciting. It's super fun now, to be using it and seeing it in action in my own spaces, and knowing that it works 1,000% of the time and quickly.
You said it, the key there. The reason I said this because there's too many fake coaches online that annoy me. Is you actually have a track record of doing the work, growing, learning, doing more, knowing that as a master, you don't ever learn. You always say, thank you for the next lesson and move forward compared to the next funnel person that's never sold a thing in their life or the 20-year-old life coach. I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe there's one that can be one. I'm not, it's just throwing it out there. But I think you said something there, and I in that because I started going, I'm not there yet. There are still times that I get triggered. There are still times that I go up. There's still times that I have to go and I have to own my shit and say I shouldn't have said that. I was mad, whatever. No, I'm not going to blame it that I'm an Aries. No, I'm not going to blame it that I grew up hard. No, I'm not going to blame it on anything. It's a part of 100% ownership that people take wrong in the alpha mindset. 100% ownership means you own your stuff and you correct yourself, not you own everyone else's stuff and tell them what to do. And I think that has something that I've learned because I'm in a super high stress, high ego, high herded people environment in what I do for a living. Most
Mhm.
of the salespeople I know are really much eagerly hurt little kids that are trying to win. And that's not a negative. Like I was there, don't take that wrong. And then just navigating the relationship and seeing people for where they're at. I don't think you ever arrive. And I don't really believe in happiness. I believe in contentment. There are happy times, but I learned to be content because happy is a state of being for me,
Mhm.
where contentment is a choice.
I love that. And I think everybody can define that for themselves and also know that's malleable. I think
Mhm,
I'm happy a lot of the time. I'm usually singing and dancing to whatever's going on in my head. And really have, I think, the gift, but also the cultivated gift of wonder and awe.
mhm,
You know, if we can stay curious about life, curious about what's going on inside our heads and inside our bodies, curious about each other, that is part of what makes life really exciting. And,
mhm,
and I think, is it the small things? Yes. Is it the big things? Yes. Is it everything in between? Yes. One of the things that I love about life is that we can have multisensory experiences. And so I had a drowning death when I was 4 in the Pacific at Santa Cruz and was watching down the beach and heard, you have work to do. And so from that time, I've spent my whole life, I'm going to spend the rest of my life understanding what that means. And it's been magical. I've had a completely incredible life that has also had chaos and garbage in it, of course. But when we can get present with what's true, with what is, and also have dreams, like, what else? What else could we want? Like there's so much impact that we can have and so much true happiness, true contentment.
mhm.
In like this place is it's a good place to be.
I love that. I do. You make me think way differently, which I like. I like bringing on people that give me make me pause and look at things differently.
Thanks, Joe. That means a lot to me because your mind is always on and always moving really fast. And I really admire what you've achieved in the world and what you're doing now to help people on a larger scale, even with mindset and with getting present with what their truths are in order for them to be successful in the ways they want to be successful. And that's one of the reasons I love hanging out with you.
Well, thank you. And I almost made an excuse when you started saying it, like I haven't blah blah blah. So I just receive it because I felt that old me coming up, going because it's so funny. I'm going to explain this to people like, what is he talking about? In my head, because of the life I lived and how I've experienced things and everything, the stuff I do to me is normal and natural that I
Mhm.
think everyone would do, but everyone doesn't operate how you or I would operate. They operate in the programming that they have. And so a lot of times I don't think it's anything special, but in reality, it is special and impactful. And that high achiever self I have to deal with of no, I can take a compliment. No, it doesn't have to be something so magnificently crazy before I can accept the thing. So thank you. I received that. It was like one of those things I went to, like I could feel the old self going, I'm like, wait, wait.
Isn't that interesting? And it all comes back again. And this is big work in this is huge work in relationships. It all comes back to that self-worth, self-love, self-awareness piece where that old programming, like you said, steps in and tries to get in the way of so that the pattern can continue. But when you disrupt that pattern, then you have the opportunity to make choices. And I think that's the beautiful, brilliant, blissful place that we want to be, where we know we have choices, where we can see that there's opportunity to do something in a better way for ourselves and together. And that's Like, isn't that exciting? Like that part of relationshiping is like, yeah, when we can do this better together, we've got all possibility.
And there's no rules. That's the part that I think people put too many dumb rules on themselves. Like we were talking about beforehand, I'm going to be shifting some stuff I'm doing online for the next 3 months to
Yeah.
6 months. I haven't even set a time frame on it yet, but I just feel it's right to do. And I got wisdom from some people to make sure, hey, am I just tripping here? Because you want to have a few people to bounce stuff off, mess things up. But there's no rules. It's the life you live. So you get so many years. Make sure you're happy with it.
Yeah. Make sure you're happy with it. Make sure you're intentional. And we're so privileged to be able to have, the choices to do that when there are people living in other parts of the world who
Yep,
don't, absolutely don't.
100%.
And so, an awareness of that also. And it's not like, can I impact that? I hope so. Can I impact the harm that's being done in the world? Yeah, I think I can. One relationship at a time. Because
Hmm.
the less harm there is in our own selves and between us, the less harm there is in the world. And once we all understand that we're all connected and that this place is going to be a lot better when we um, are serving the intention of authentic connection, then so much of the crap breaks down and isn't relevant anymore. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm looking for.
I love that. I love that. I intentionally find people that think differently than I do to talk to them. Because that curiosity, I'm like, why do you think that way? Even if I completely disagree. Like, I
Yeah.
just want to know why you think that way. And I'm not talking about like stupid extreme stuff. Like, I don't go find racist people to talk to. They're just, that's not what I'm talking about. But different cultures, different ideas, different thoughts, even different political beliefs, just because I want to know,
Oh,
okay, why do you think this makes sense? Because it doesn't make sense to me. But I think you have to come with an open mind. The other thing I wish, if I could make one rule in the US, is that you have to leave the country between 18 and 25 and spend a 1 month in a third world country, see what they go through, what they live through, live like one of their citizens, then come back and take your freedoms and all where you're at. Now, again, I understand that the US is not perfect. I understand that everyone starts out differently. I grew up as a country boy on the wrong side of the tracks, eating tomato soup sometimes because that's all we had. So, like, I get no one starts out there. And I also get that I don't understand other people's how they grew up or what their experiences were. So, don't hear what I'm saying. But if you live in the US itself, you are in the top 15 to 20% of the world in income, in resources, and everything. Even if you're on poverty in the U.S. And again, I'm not saying people should be, but don't hear what I'm saying. But I think if people could in the U.S. because we have such a privilege living here, could get outside the world and see how other people have lived and they don't have choices, we would be a lot more grateful and take more time to live the life we want to because we've been given a gift that of 7 billion people, there's only 380 million Americans, I think. I don't know the numbers. I could be off for my technical people, but you get the gist. It's not even a billion people that live in the US, but we have way more resources and valuable stuff to be able to just live a life we want than most people.
right. Yeah. And our ability to do relationship is not great,
No.
even though we have resource. So there's a place of, looking at what we've learned, looking at how education and marketing and the quote unquote success factors have set us up to be disconnected in a way that makes us think that to get ahead, somebody else has to lose.
It's not true. Oh, I get that. I know how the system's set up, but I'm just sitting there going, we all can win. There is so much ability, grace, peace, life, whatever term you want to use. And success isn't defined by what someone else says.
Right.
You can make 100,000 a year and be successful. You can make 50,000 a year and be successful if you're doing what you feel you want to do.
You can,
Don't let other people bind you.
right, exactly. I think that that place of defining for yourself what success is, what love looks like, what a great life is for you, and also checking in on that every once in a while because it changes.
Oh, it so changes. It so changes. and we're gonna land this plane soon. I know we've gone a little bit longer, but I like it, and it's my show, so I can do what I want. Um, but like I'm sitting here going, when I was super young in the cultural thing I was in, I had this one idea that I had to do this. It's the only one way to be successful. And then as I've gone along, then I fell into sales and I fell into entrepreneurship and I fell into all this stuff. And I say it fell because it wasn't like I was intentional to begin with. My day job ended, so I had to get into sales. That was the only thing I could do. And then other things happened and happened for me, which I understand now. At the time, I don't know if I thought it happened for me, but and I think we get to the point where we have to learn. We get one trip here. Do what it is that makes you happy, as long as you're not hurting anyone. That's my only rule. I don't care. Do what you want as long as you're not hurting anyone. And if you're questioning that thought happens, well, what about this? Well, you're probably hurting someone if you're thinking, what about this? It's
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah, I love that. And I do want to, a little bit of pushback on the 20-year-old life coach. One of my clients is an 18-year-old who learned how to do investments, and I take his advice all the time because
What
he
here
well,
investments, yes. So
yeah.
there are some really smart people, like super smart. Like my daughter, she has super high IQ, but she has a girl in her class that graduated from high school and she's in college at 12. So super brilliant. And in certain things like social media, digital marketing, all that type of stuff that are like learned skills, it's one thing to me. In my head, call me a curmudgeon, but in 20 years, you haven't lived a life the same way. Now, can you be super successful? Can I learn from him? Oh, 100%. There are certain things my son is more capable at fixing stuff around the house than I am. He just has the gene. Like he's going to be an electrician. He's just good at that. Can I do it? Yeah, it's going to take me 2 hours or it'd take him a half hour. Lean on him because I know that skill set, he can be there. Sorry, I know I threw out the life coach investments, all that
No,
stuff.
I love
Yes,
that.
I was
No.
kind of, it was a little tongue in cheek. I'm sure some 19-year-old life coach is going to reach out to me and go, I'm making 18 million. I'm like, good buddy, please do. Go make
Right.
500 more. I'm with you.
Right. But it depends on the audience too, So like
Yeah.
if 20-year-old life coach has clients like mine who are 16, 17, 18, making more money
Yeah.
than, so like, yeah, great. I mean, I think there's a place for everyone to lean into their interests, their passions and their own growth. Like, how do we get there unless we try it?
We
You know,
don't. And we don't. You have to
right?
try. You have to try
Same-
and fail. It's
Yes.
never perfect the first time.
Exactly. And I think same with relationship, right? You have to
Mhm.
try. And within the relationship, there are many failures,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And so the deepening or choosing to move on, if you're gonna do it, you do it in an elegant way, elegant exits from a relationship. But like how exciting is it to know that there's constant growth happening
Hmm.
in a place where we think, oh God, we've been together for X number of years or months or days, and now it's boring. Like it's only boring if we're not willing to look at what's possible.
And if we're not putting effort, time, and energy in, because it's called the honeymoon stage, because in the beginning, you put in time, effort, and energy, then you get to a point where you just take the person for granted. It happens. Or they get comfortable, and then you're like, I don't feel a spark. Well, there was a reason you're feeling a spark. Just like if you're lifting weight, you get ripped because you're lifting weight. If you stop lifting weight, your muscles will stay there for a while, but then eventually they start to go away. Same thing.
Right? Exactly. And is it possible, to have the like someone who is here for a while and isn't the right lifelong match? Of course
Hmm.
that's possible. It's
Oh, yeah.
possible in on teams, it's possible in intimate relationships, it's possible everywhere. But whatever attracted us to that person, to that hiring or to that relationship partnering, that's something to look at.
Hmm.
What was I looking for? What did I think this person was going to fulfill? What did I see? What did I need? Is that still the same? Has that changed? Now how can we meet? Where's the yes now?
Yeah. Or did you grow and they did not, or did they grow and you did not too? Because
Oh, that's
sometimes that happens too, and it's just like
yeah.
that unbalancing. Yeah,
Yeah, I
we could
mean,
we could. So let's do this, and we're gonna have to have you on again because like we've already gone over an hour, which is great. Um, and we could keep going probably for another two or three because I can talk to you all day. But where can people find you at and connect with you?
I'm on all social media on at Tressa Yonekawa. My website is epicodo or tressaspeaks.com. And yeah, I would love to connect. And Joe, please let's do this again online or offline because same, I could talk to you for days and keep learning.
Oh, we definitely will. And I will put all this in the show notes. But before I let you go, I always like to give, is there anything that maybe you wanted to touch on we didn't touch on, or any like last words for this episode for the people listening?
You know, you are such a brilliant host. I think we've covered everything, and I thank you for that. The only thing that I would ask is, you know, can we ask ourselves the question of what kind of a life will I have? What kind of life in my home, in my work, and in this world? If I allow myself to take a breath and connect, to see and be seen, to love and be loved, and to recognize that's a requirement and that's what we deserve.
I love it. Press, thank you for being here. For all you listening, take a breath, take a moment, and just sit down and figure out who it is that you want to be and plan it from there. Again, it's your life. No one else gets a vote. And until next time, be amazing.